Some mysteries fade with time, others wait in silence, clawing their way back into the light. Millersburg, Pennsylvania, was the kind of town where people believed they were safe. A quiet place, where church bells rang on Sundays, where neighbors waved across picket fences, and where life seemed simple. But in 1974, that illusion shattered. A crime so brutal, so unnerving, struck at the very heart of the community. And though decades have passed, its echoes still haunt the town, carried forward by a single piece of paper, a forgotten letter that revealed more than anyone was ready to face. It began with Margaret Hollis. At 28 years old, she embodied everything Millersburg thought was pure and good. A schoolteacher, dedicated and kind. The type of woman who stayed late after class to help struggling students, who baked cookies for neighborhood kids, who always had a smile even on her hardest days. But behind her warm presence, Margaret carried a loneliness only those close to her truly understood. She lived alone in a modest home on the edge of town, the kind of place where curtains swayed in the evening breeze and porch lights glowed like quiet beacons against the dark. It was there, on an ordinary November night, that something unspeakable happened. Her body was found in that house, lifeless, silent, and marked by violence that shook even the most seasoned investigators. What made the crime even more chilling was not what was found, but what wasn't. There was no forced entry. No broken window, no kicked-in door. The police believed Margaret had let her killer inside. Perhaps it was someone she trusted. Perhaps someone she knew too well. That detail alone tore through the community like wildfire. Because if Margaret Hollis could be betrayed by someone within her circle, what did that mean for everyone else? Neighbors whispered behind locked doors. Parents pulled their children closer. The town once filled with laughter and casual hellos suddenly felt like a place where every smile might be hiding a secret. Rumors spread, of jealous coworkers, of rejected suitors, of strangers seen loitering near the school. But when the dust of suspicion settled, the police had nothing. No suspects. No confession. No motive. Just silence. And so the case, as shocking as it was, went cold. Margaret's name slipped into the quiet tragedy of unsolved murders, her story filed away in dusty cabinets as the years pressed on. But some secrets do not rest quietly, and some voices refuse to stay silenced. It was in 2010, more than 3 decades later, that fate, or something darker, resurrected the case. A library clerk, sorting through old municipal files, discovered something wedged where it didn't belong. A yellowed envelope, brittle with age. Its edges curled, its paper stained by time. On the front, careful but hurried handwriting. Inside, a letter. Handwritten. Detailed. And horrifying. The letter was no ordinary rambling. It was a confession. Not vague, not uncertain, but disturbingly precise. It described Margaret Hollis's final night. The approach. The entry. The act itself. Each line dripped with a cold calculation that only the one responsible could know. The words weren't just a retelling, they were a performance. A chilling recital of how one life had been taken and how a community had been deceived. But there was something even more unsettling. The writer didn't sound afraid. They didn't seem worried about being caught. Instead, the words carried pride. They described how they manipulated the investigation, how they misled the police, how they stood in plain sight while others wept. It was a cruel victory lap, written in ink. And then, a final warning. The letter hinted that the truth was dangerous. That eyes were still watching. That pushing too far could bring consequences no one wanted. It was as if the killer was still alive, still there, daring anyone to try. From that moment on, the town changed. Nights seemed darker. Strangers felt closer. And every closed door seemed to hide a story no one wanted to uncover. Even the police admitted, quietly, that they might never know the full truth. But the question lingers, and it is one I now put directly to you. If someone can hide a crime for decades, living side by side with their neighbors, smiling at their friends, and shaking hands at church, what does that say about how well we really know the people around us? Could someone you trust carry a secret that dark? Could a polite smile be a mask for something unspeakable? Think about that as you sit in your own home tonight. Because Millersburg was just another quiet town. Ordinary. Safe. Until it wasn't. The discovery of the forgotten letter did more than reopen an old case, it reopened old wounds. For the people of Millersburg, the past wasn't past anymore. It had come alive again, whispering through yellowed pages and brittle ink. And with it came fear, suspicion, and questions no one truly wanted to answer. Police brought in handwriting experts, archivists, and even behavioral analysts. The letter was real, there was no doubt about that. The phrasing, the details, the chilling accuracy of Margaret's final moments, it could not have been fabricated. But there was something even more haunting, the way the words revealed the writer's mind. Cold. Detached. Almost proud. This was not a confession written in guilt. It was written in satisfaction. Whoever the writer was, they had no regret, only a twisted need to let someone, someday, know what they had done. Why leave it behind? Perhaps arrogance. Perhaps the thrill of knowing their words might one day be found. Or perhaps it was their final way of controlling the story, ensuring that their truth, not the community's, would echo through time. That, in itself, was a form of power. As news of the letter spread, the town began to fracture all over again. Old suspicions reignited. Families that had lived side by side for decades started looking at each other with narrowed eyes. Could it be him? Could it have been her? Grocery store conversations grew hushed, church pews felt colder, and children were told to keep their voices down after dark. Some even claimed to see strange figures at night, watching from the edges of the woods, as if the past itself was still lurking. Rational minds dismissed these as paranoia, but in a town with a history like Millersburg's, who could be sure? The investigators combed through what little evidence remained. The letter had no fingerprints, no DNA. Just ink on paper. A ghost of a crime. And ghosts don't leave trails. But they do leave shadows. And this is where the psychology of the letter becomes chilling. Behavioral analysts noted that the writer displayed what is known as duper's delight, the enjoyment of deceiving others. The letter wasn't just about murder, it was about dominance. About the thrill of outsmarting the police, of living among neighbors who never guessed the truth. The killer had turned Margaret's death into a trophy, one that could be displayed in words, long after the act itself had faded. Think about that for a moment. To walk into church on a Sunday, shake hands with grieving neighbors, bow your head in prayer, while inside, knowing that you are the reason for their pain. That is not just cruelty. That is something darker. Something that walks the line between humanity and monster. And yet, even with this insight, the truth remained out of reach. The letter ended with a warning: you will never know. 3 words. Simple, but devastating. A final taunt from someone who had hidden in plain sight for over 30 years. Someone who could still be alive, perhaps living quietly just a few blocks away. Someone who might even be sitting across from you in the diner, their coffee steaming, their eyes betraying nothing. The town tried to move forward. But moving forward with a ghost behind you is never easy. Some residents claimed Margaret's house remained haunted, not by her, but by the weight of unspoken truth. Lights flickering, footsteps on stairs, curtains moving without wind. Others dismissed it as superstition, but in Millersburg, superstition carried teeth. Even today, visitors to that town describe a strange heaviness in the air, as if history itself refuses to let go. And that brings us to the question you, as the listener, must confront. If the killer is never caught, if the letter remains the only proof, then what is worse, a murderer who walks free, or a community that must live forever with the suspicion that one of their own is guilty? Which eats away at you more, the crime or the doubt? I want you to sit with that thought. Because Millersburg is not unique. There are towns like it across America. Small places with friendly faces, picket fences, and secrets buried deeper than anyone dares to dig. And who's to say your town isn't one of them? Who's to say the person you trust most, the neighbor, the coworker, the smiling stranger in line, doesn't carry their own forgotten letter inside them? So tonight, when you lock your doors, when you check your windows, when you turn out the lights, ask yourself, what do we really know about the people around us? And more importantly, what don't we know? Before we close, if this story has left you thinking, chilled, or even a little uneasy, make sure to like this video, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't just listen, you'll become part of this community of truth seekers and mystery lovers. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you're alerted the very moment a new chilling story drops. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking with me into the shadows of Millersburg. Stories like this remind us that the past never really stays buried. It waits, it watches, and sometimes, it writes itself into history in the form of a single letter. Don't forget, our next chilling story will drop on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 a.m. West Africa Time. Mark your calendar, because you won't want to miss the silent witness, a tale even more unsettling than this one. Until then, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, some mysteries are meant to be told, but never solved.